Hello. It's Thursday. Oop, sorry. Just getting set up for our live. Wait for y'all to join us. Here we go. Hey, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well today. Just a reminder, you can catch Mary May Wood Carving at 1 p.m. Eastern on Twitch, Monday through Friday. Joseph is here at 2 p.m. Monday through Friday here on Instagram. And also join me on Wednesdays for a Women of Woodworking live stream. We had our first one last night and it was a lot of fun. So Mary joined us and 727 Builds joined us. So yeah, but feel free to introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from, what you're working on. We love to chat, but just giving Joe a minute to get all set up. Want to tell us what you're working on today, Joe?
Okay. Yes. So I believe yesterday
was Q&A.
Oh yeah,
Tuesday?
So I've cut, well, wherever we were, I've cut the twin bridle joints in the rockers. I've stayed shy of my baseline just because I was having a little trouble marking it out, and my plan of using the multi-router to cut the bridle joints, that fell through. I didn't have a bit long enough. I needed about 1 3/4 inch cutter length, and I don't have a bit that big or that long. So I ended up going back to the table saw, using my tenon jig, and you can imagine. So a tenon jig, if you're not familiar, holds a piece vertical to pass over the table saw blade. So I had some awkward ways to hold the piece. But it ended up working out good, but I couldn't quite dial in the baseline, because the baseline is actually the square back of the leg, and then the front being tapered, so that therefore the baseline and the front edge are at a different angle. So if I had it positioned to where it was sitting flat on the table, I ended up getting what I got, which was a slightly more material on the bottom than I have at the top. So I'm gonna have to deal with that with the chisel. It's just the way it goes. Plus, I'm not gonna lie, this project is it's giving me a little trouble as far as wrapping my head around it, trying to concentrate. It's definitely not some extremely difficult project, but I'm having a little trouble concentrating, I think, like everybody else is. So trying to come up with the right plan, and that goes along with doing the first of any. There's a lot of figuring out to do, and I'm doing it while I'm getting filmed live. So there's a little bit of that going on. So that being said, I have the rocker the bridle joints cut on that. There will be some chisel cleanup, and then I went ahead and cut the mating piece on the bottoms of the legs. And again, since this is not going exactly to plan, most of them I was able to kind of get in somewhat of a having.
Oh wait, hold on. It says it's ended. We'll start another one. Okay. It must be Instagram. Oh please. Okay, now you're back live. Hopefully they'll find you back. Sorry guys. Instagram must be crashing. We're gonna get through it though. And we'll be sharing all these to the story for 24 hours, and I'm also recording these, so it will be on YouTube at full length for all of eternity. So anyways, sorry, continue.
Okay. So, yeah. Can't remember where I was. But... So I've cut the joints in the rocker, and I've cut the joints in the bottom of the rocker legs. As I mentioned a little bit before, I was able to do a lot of repeat cuts, but how things aren't going exactly streamlined for me, so I'm having to do a little bit of individual fitting for each part, and that's fine. That's part of it. You know, normally once you get the process nailed down, then you can do a little bit faster and a little bit more production mode. But right now I'm just figuring out this piece while I'm doing it in front of you. So
kind of like how I'm trying to figure out Instagram crashing on us today.
Yeah. So fortunately, I've got them very close. I have a little bit of just fine fitting to do. For these front legs, the base is actually square, a 90-degree angle to fit this flat. Well, it's flat on the bottom and then a corresponding flat on the front here. So it's a 90-degree shoulder, and so that one shouldn't give me too much trouble. The back, the shoulder on the shoulder will be a radius. So there'll be, and this is the shoulder where it actually sits on top of this rocker, and that radius is the shoulder will be radius. So they'll be a little bit more finicky to fit that, and then to have them both fit exactly the same on both sides to then sit level. I'm kind of anticipating some head scratching, but we'll see. So first though, I'll go with the one that I feel like I can move on with. So that will be the front with the 90-degree shoulder. So I'm gonna get these out of the way so I'm not confusing myself. This is the right one.
Hi, thanks for joining us. If you want to tell us your name, where you're from, what you're working on, if you have any questions.
So they're just starting, they start in the joint. One thing that'll happen when you're using a tenon jig on the table saw is it always cuts the most accurate when there's all the material left and there's you're not sneaking up on the cut. You'd think that'd be a great way to do it, you know, really sneak up, try to fit it. What happens when you do that is when I'm cutting this and the table saw is vertical and these pieces have material removed, the blade has some deflection. So right here at the top, I'm fitting really good, and then you can imagine the blade kind of starts kicking out, and well, actually down here at the bottom, excuse me, that's fitting really well, or starting to go into the joint. And the table saw gets some deflection. It's so minute, but it's there. It gets tighter up here while I try to seat the joint. That's because I made a cut, took a measurement, kind of dialed in a little, micro adjusted over, and so I've got some deflection. So there, I will have a little bit of cleanup with the plane, and what I mean, you can see, it's starting to go in. While I try to seat it, it's actually getting fatter up top. So that's where I'm gonna have to trim. Now the trick is to try to diagnose which one's holding me up, because with the kind of a lot of air, it's not just a single bridle joint where you can kind of look and see where it's touching, or I've got a lot of different surfaces trying to mate at the same time. So it can be tricky, and it likes to fool you sometimes too. You'll see where you think is a gap, and you think, okay, well that one doesn't need to be touched, but that's actually bowing out one of the ears over here and producing a gap in the front where it's there. That is the one you have to take material away from. So there's really, it's challenging to figure out which one to take away from, because right now it's so close and I'm looking for the very best fit I can. I start whittling away, I whittle away at the wrong one, I'm gonna make a gap, which is not what I want to do. So that being said, there's a few ways I can try to check this. I can take my square and try to sight down the joint, and once I figure out which one it is, I'll come on up and show you. Okay.
Yeah, tell us where you're from, what you're working on.
Tell me when I'm in view.
You are good.
Okay. So this might be tough to see. I might have to come up a little bit farther. How close should I get? Let's see. So if you can see, when I put the square up there, it's going to be touching in here with a slight gap here. See if you can focus in on that. I mean, it's very, very small.
Can you pull it back just a little? There you go.
Okay. Can you see the light here underneath the blade of the square, where it's fully touching towards the end of the square?
Yes.
I mean,
here, can you? Yeah.
Less than a 64th, probably something like 1/28 or some something ridiculous.
Yeah.
So that's deflection off the table saw.
All right.
It's again, it's extremely minute, but enough to make the joint not go together. So, huh?
Can you lower it just a little? There you go. Okay, yeah.
Can you see it from your perspective?
Yeah, so I can see like right there.
That's right. So there's light there.
Touching.
So it's touching back towards the shoulder of the piece. So what made that happen is when this is in the tenon jig and the table saw blade's cutting, it's introduced into the blade. It's cutting this bottom nice right where I want it to be, but then the blade is doing this, like deflecting out this way. So it's fatter up here. And that's because I was sneaking up on the cut. So once there's no material to really trap that blade in there like your initial cut, then it's the path of least resistance for that blade, and it starts kicking out this way. If this thing is a solid block and I make my cut and I nail it on the first time, that's the most accurate way you can do it. That's why, so you think, okay, how do you go about fitting this in real life? So if you're fitting it and you get this one to fit and then you go cut the other ones are probably going to be a little loose because they're possibly, they won't be tight or too tight, I guess. So because if I haven't taken any material away yet, they're going to be dead on. So the way you not remedy that, but the way you end up with the cut how you want it to be and the fit is to have an identical piece like you've always heard and do a test piece. It has to be identical to the piece you're using. Because just any discrepancy in the thickness or any of the dimensions will throw that joint off. You saw how little I was talking about that it was off, and so even if it's just a slight amount off, that'll throw it off. So you use a test piece, make that cut, dial that test piece in, and then go to your real pieces. So anyway, all that being said, we'll figure out which one it is again. Let's see. Yes. So, not very much to take off. This is about how things are going. Just like this. Okay. So I'm going to use my rabbit plane. Blade comes out the side of the sole, so I can go right up into the corner.
Oh, and there's a glare. Can you hold it a little bit more? Yeah.
This guy.
There you go.
So.
It's so shiny.
So shiny. Need to put like an X here so I don't have to look again. Alright. So. Probably gonna hook on blocky here.
Okay. You get set up and I'll adjust.
Grab one thing.
Hey everybody. Hope y'all are doing well out there.
Can you see with all this stuff on my bench?
Is that a chisel right there? I don't have my glasses on. Yeah.
Okay, so I really could use a chisel if I wanted to with this plane. Because it is concentrated up here in this corner, I have a little narrower one. It might be just a ticket, so I'm not taking too much off on the bottom. So I'm just going to try to take very light cuts. So another way I try to see which one is holding me up is I'll look at the piece with the one that has the side tabs on it, the little wings, and I can see that this side, this piece right here is flaring out, it's getting bowed out. So that tells me that it's probably this surface right here that needs to come down a little bit. In the corner we'll get rid of. I just might as well confirm that.
Oh.
And I'd say the only...
Hold on, it cut off again. There we go. You can continue, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. So you'll see me sometimes checking for square, like I'm looking at the sky. It's easy to think you're square just by looking at it, and it may be square-ish, but the only way I can really tell is holding it up to the light, and I can see light coming through the blade. That's just how I like to do things. I can just see exactly where light's passing through, and So where's the high spot? So Instagram kicked me off again?
Yeah, it said poor connection, which, you know, whatever. We live in the middle of nowhere, so I can't fault them there. Hey everyone, hope y'all are doing well today. Feel like we're kind of starting over, so if you want to tell them what you're doing real quick.
Okay. What I'm doing is fine tuning, or trying to fit the bridle joints on the bottom leg of the rocker to the front of the actual rocker. What I was really, it's really close and it's starting to fit, and what I was trying to do is kind of diagnose what's holding me up, and then just slowly take some material away. So I aimed, when I'm doing joinery, I aim to be able to fit this with hand pressure. I mean, rarely am I trying to knock something together. It's such a fine line and really a sweet spot for the joint to fit how I'm looking to fit, and not be too tight when I introduce glue to it, and obviously not too loose, even worse. But I kind of aim to not have to pound it together, but I'm aiming to be able to hold it up and shake it and it not come apart. And you can hear it. You can really hear the kind of the suction really between the pieces as the ideal fit, and that's something that comes with just doing it and getting the right kind of fit. I mean, once you've made something too tight and you know, had something seize up during a glue up, you kind of have an idea of what the parameters are.
Oh boy, hold on one more second.
Lost me again?
Yeah. All right, we're back. I know. That's like the third or fourth time we've had to restart, but we'll get through it. You only have like 5 or 6 more minutes.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So,
sorry, everyone.
fine tuning this bridle joint with the hand plane, trying to get it to fit.
For those that watch it on YouTube, it'll be one continuous video.
Yeah.
So
It ought to be interesting. You'll be like, why is he telling me the same thing 7 times? So
don't get it.
It'll be alright.
Get through it together.
Get through it together. Again, I guess the last thing I was talking about was the kind of fit I'm looking for. I'm not trying to use a mallet to drive it together, using hand pressure, and really want to be able to basically hold it upside down and shake it and it not come apart. And there's kind of a sweet spot between being too tight and fitting just right, and then being too loose. You know, there's lots of glues that are gap filling and stuff that can handle, you know, it would be okay, but it's not what I'm looking for. I'm trying to get a fit that's you know, not really dependent on glue, I guess, even though I use it, and we have really strong modern glues these days, so it's all right if glue had to help me out a little bit. I'm just aiming for the best fit I can. So sneaking up on it with a hand plane. And it's a kind of a slow process, so you don't want to get plain happy and blow through it, because it'll come down to one pass being just right or too sloppy. So another thing I guess I need to check is just the same as those having some deflection. These pieces have deflection as well, so checking to make sure they're not. These look pretty good. I think I was able to cut these on the first go, so not any deflection on the blade. I'm sure I had to sneak up on one or two, but this looked pretty good. You know, the challenge is one in the middle. If you have a spot you have to get to in the middle, that's more chisel work. It looked pretty good. So fortunately, I can concentrate on the ones I actually have more access to. I say that when I actually see one right here that I could take a little bit off. So it's
well, and it's already 2:28, so we've been chugging right along. And if anybody has any questions, or tell us where you're from, what's going on, feel free. And again, we are now recording these and posting these to YouTube afterwards, so you can go back and reference them. And of course, always feel free to send us a message if you have a question. Joseph is live Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern here on Instagram. You can also join Mary May over on Twitch at 1 p.m. Eastern. She, again, is on Twitch. We are on Instagram. And then on Wednesdays, the Women of Woodworking live stream has begun. We just had our first one last night and announced a giveaway, and Mary May joined us for that, as did 727 Build. So it was a really good discussion. Talked a lot about carving and kind of what's been happening. So I hope everyone's doing all right out there.
Oh, that's so close. And this one there's kind of access from, a lot of times it's just, there's one way it goes in, and this one can kind of come in from the front or the top, so it's worth it to try to, when you're trying to diagnose what's holding you up, kind of come at it from a couple different angles. And when I'm sighting down the edge of this piece, I'm looking for deflection in these pieces, which would let me know somewhere either on the tenon or I guess the mortise in here, where material needs to be taken away. And I'm so picky. I mean, I just really want it to be as tight as it can be. It's so close. Make a pass and fill.
can hear it, just that little bit of resistance.
Yeah, it starts squeaking on me.
It's like watching golf in here. It's so quiet because we're listening for it. More exciting than golf to me.
I don't know. It's funny. It really acts like it's holding up inside this. One more shot. This is where really sharp chisels are pretty much are a must, because I'm trying to take
just the
tiniest little bit off, and it has to be extremely controlled cut. And if it isn't razor sharp and can't grab where I'm asking it to grab, then I'm just kind of rubbing it. Did we lose everybody?
It just keeps restarting. So, but we're gonna hold out until we hear that magical vacuum. So hopefully people will come back and join us. And again, I think how these will be posted, people will be able to watch them in succession pretty easily. Welcome back.
Did it really cut out again?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I thought you were...
I've just like stopped telling you when it cuts out because I get it back on so fast. It's not worth disrupting your thought flow. Hey, everybody. A lot of people must be going live right now because Instagram keeps dropping it. But again, it'll be posted in its entirety on YouTube as well. So. And right now, just Joseph is getting ready to fit these bridle joints, and very, very close to having it exactly fine-tuned to how he wants. Hey, Charlestown Woodworks.
Hello.
I didn't dress up today. I was too tired.
Ah. All right, so
all right,
the shoulders aren't dialed in yet, so that's not letting it fully seat down. Mm-hmm. But the bridle joints are tight.
Nice.
I mean, you could, like I said, it's a whisper that you're trying to take away. It's the difference between it being super tight and too loose. So, good news is everything looks like it's making sense and it's gonna go together. So, baseline's down and it'll come together.
All right. Do you mind holding up the scale model next to that leg, just so people can kind of see? I'd like to see that for myself, actually.
Yeah. So this one's got a little bit more of a rake in the front, or the rake, I guess. It should be the side view of it.
Mm-hmm. So you've adjusted.
I have adjusted it.
All right. Awesome. Well, I think that's a good place to stop.
Yeah.
Thanks for those that have stayed with us throughout the duration and all the many drop-offs. We'll see y'all tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern back here on IG Live. Have a good one.